So welcome, Endure and Transform. The video series continues looking at opportunities for us to evolve ourselves through the COVID lockdown and beyond. Speaking today to Mark Coyle, CEO of the Impellam Group based in Australia. Mark has a lot of experience in the Australian market and overseas, and is currently running very large contingent workforce programs across the country. Mark, I've given you a brief introduction. Maybe just introduce yourself very quickly, and let's talk about, let's just dive right in. So where the market's sitting right now with contingent workforce, and where do you see it going in the next couple months?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Doug. My name's Mark Coyle. I'm the CEO of Impellam across the APAC region. Responsible for looking after our managed service, our technology divisions, and managing them across the region. Some obvious changes that everyone's seeing, that we've moved seamlessly to a full working from home environment. I think, as most businesses, that has expedited an experiment that perhaps most businesses, certainly office-based businesses, have been considering, is what balance of their workforce can work from home. I certainly believe that has this experiment has been largely successful, with some technology challenges, as I'm sure everyone's experienced. But certainly the ability for companies such as ourselves to work from home and move quite rapidly into different environments has been very rewarding and very encouraging. So I certainly think that will have an impact, and then the impact that has on city spaces. So we're certainly starting to see in Sydney, where I'm based at the CBD, is returning to normal, but albeit that the landlords in the city are starting to say, well, there's going to be more capacity in the office spaces as more companies perhaps start to maintain the working from home that they've learned through COVID. And then that in turn, has implications on the makeup of their workforce and their staffing requirements. So does that then change the proportion of staff that they have that are permanent, casual, and contingent? Do they work to a more project-based orientated environment? So yeah, I think there's some significant transformational workforce changes that will come out of this environment, and some of which will be really positive.
And when you say positive, I mean, how have you found managing that process? And do you think managing it from say an MSP or contingent workforce management point of view, how is managing it going to be different moving forward? I mean, it was a little bit different when we were on site and we knew where our workforce was sitting. Now we're talking about a much more potentially remote workforce with different payment options, different engagement options. How are you finding the management of that moving forward?
Yeah, so I think that's an ongoing. It's not complete, that management piece. So certainly some groups and tasks are much better equipped to go to a working from home autonomous environment, and I think there's the professional tasks that are conducted, but then there's also the social tasks that clearly we're inhibited with. So I think it's about finding that balance. So I'm certainly don't believe advocating full working from home, but maybe proportionally working in different environments where certain tasks can be taken out of the office space in the future. Not necessarily for us, but for our customer base. I think we're going to see more of that. But I think what we will see, and what we need to be really conscious of in our workplace health and safety obligations to our workforce, is that whilst working from home is great, we still have obligations to the safety of our workers, whether that be both in the environment, and so there's office and setup space, or their mental well-being, which certainly I think it's widely acknowledged that globally there's going to be a mental health uptick from this working from home and lack of social interaction. So how we look after employees in those circumstances, will become really important.
Yeah, it's something we haven't touched about during the campaign thus far. In terms of that, how are those touch points with those more isolated workers from your point of view? Are you working through the suppliers to make sure that happens? Do you feel that's a responsibility maybe of the MSP itself? Who's managing that?
So typically, the suppliers are the employer of the workers. Certainly, in our circumstance, we operate purely neutral models in this region currently. So it's up to the suppliers to make sure that they are engaging and monitoring the health and safety and workplaces of their contingent workforce. Obviously, we have our responsibility to our employees in the region, and we have adopted regular check-ins. We are mandating video conferencing where possible. Most organizations, we're using a variety of technologies to keep us well engaged. We've certainly seen an uptake in our intranet and social media interactions for the business, but then we're also encouraging people to check in on a daily basis and get eyes on every individual. So the expectation that would flow down to the supply chain and the workers that they place, and also our customers as well. We have different relationships with customers, where sometimes there's a stronger employment relationship, so they have similar obligations around the health and safety and well-being of their workforce.
I think it's a pretty important topic, one we haven't touched on yet. So potentially we'll do a separate hashtag in Endure and Transform just on that mental health component. But just changing tact a little bit, very different marketplace. But we had a conversation with George Wang in this series. He runs China. He feels, and again, very different marketplace, but interesting concept or interesting sort of crystal balling it. He thinks there's going to be an uptick in contingent workforce requirements moving out of this lockdown period. And that's because he feels companies don't want to have the fixed costs of permanent hires. Do you see that potential uptick happening as well in your markets?
Yes, I think organizations are still trying to figure out what post-COVID looks like, and whether this will be a sharp V-shape reduction, which will return to previous activity, or whether it would be a more prolonged exit. And if it is the latter, you would anticipate that hiring a higher proportion of contingent workers would be more beneficial as organizations start to think of what size and structure of business they require post-COVID.